Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 16th Claris Community Live. Just so you know, this will be our last Community Live in 2024, but we're already planning, starting back in about mid-January next year for our future events. And today it's my pleasure to welcome Doug Wallis, our platform evangelist, and Ronnie Rios from the product management team, to share more about what's new in FileMaker 2021. Ronnie, why don't you get started and introduce yourself? Oh, actually, before I do that, we do have a poll, and just a reminder how to find the poll. Click on Apps, and then open Slido, and I believe the poll is running, or I may need to start it. Now the poll is running. So you just have a couple questions about your experience so far with FileMaker 2024 and with semantic search. So with that, Ronnie, why don't you get started?
Sure. Everyone, for those who don't know me, I'm Ronnie Rios. I'm part of the product management team based out of New York. Right now, focusing most of my time on all things AI and the platform.
Good afternoon, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're on the planet. My name is Doug Wallis. I am working on the platform evangelism side. So I do a lot of stuff to get people to kind of buy what we've built for them and try to use them as much as they can.
All right. And just a couple of other reminders. Please remember to use chat for your questions. We're going to watch that most closely. And when you do send a chat, make sure you change that to down at the bottom to everyone and not just to all panelists or to individuals, because we have lots of other FileMaker and Claris experts listening who frequently will jump in and chat and answer questions. So got a little bit of activity in the poll. And for people, first question was, are you using FileMaker 2024? But 3/4 are either testing or in production. 2/3 have said they're in production, and about 1/4 have said not yet. And then for reasons, still running FileMaker 19, setting aside time this month to do all the upgrades, deploying next semester, proceed with testing next year, and a couple people waiting out some issues. So we are aware of, and I promise our engineering team is hard at work on those issues. And then on semantic search, we have, looks like half the audience on experimenting with semantic search still don't know where to start, or don't know where to start. About 1/3 have started experimenting, and 10%, 8% have something in production. So that's good to hear. And I think we'll share some resources to help those of you who don't know where to start, get started. And so with that, Doug, why don't you take it away and frame up what we're going to cover in today's Community Live.
Cool. Thanks, Rosemary. So yeah, this is part 2 of the FileMaker 2024 21.1 update. We did one 2 weeks ago where I had no power. This week I've got power. Storm is still there, but basically I can actually do my work, which is kind of nice. So last week we talked about FileMaker Pro and the updates that we've done on that on FileMaker Go. Today so the idea is because there's some new things inside of FileMaker 21.1, we thought it's going to be easier to actually split basically into two events. And the one we're going to do today is around AI and how it works inside the FileMaker, and then we'll do some things around FileMaker Server and all the new stuff to actually sort of roll out. One of the things that you've actually probably seen on our website is we kind of changed the way the FileMaker page works, where we've actually sort of taken some of the ideas from the Apple website, so that from one page, we give our customers and our users access to all the various information you need to actually have whenever we do an update of FileMaker. So when you go to the FileMaker page, you have the overview page, which is the generic sort of description of what FileMaker can do. And then we created the what's new page and then the text specs, just to make your life a lot easier so that you don't actually have to navigate across the whole site. This makes it a lot easier for you to be able to actually figure out what you're looking for. At the top, you'll see a lot of stuff around AI. And then we've broken down the page into 4 sections. And what we've done around that is whenever we have an article or some information about a specific topics, we'll basically have the link so that you can actually find information a lot easier. So AI, there is a page around how to use AI searching. Ron is going to go into more of the details of all the new stuff that we have in 21.1. But ideally from this, you'll be able to actually find all the information we have. Down there afterwards, you have a section on security. A lot of the work is done on FileMaker Server, which we'll talk in the second part of the session today. And then at the bottom, you have the new features around FileMaker Pro, new features on FileMaker Go, and then you have the links at the bottom to be able to actually get various versions. I know that people always kind of find it hard to actually find information, but from this page, you'll have all the links that you need to be able to get whatever download links that you need. So if you want to get your download links for your server or pro, then you just go to this FileMaker Pro sections. It will take you to the resources download page where you can download FileMaker Pro for the Mac or the Windows, and then the release notes with all the information. And then you can do the same for FileMaker Server. The idea is to make your life a lot easier. Whenever there's an update, this is from this page, you'll have all the links to be able to actually find those. So with that said, I'm going to hand up to Ronnie, who's going to go more into details on AI and especially what we've done on FileMaker 21.1.
Thanks, Doug. All right, you guys can hear me well? I heard somebody saying I should speak a little bit louder. But all right, so I'm going to share my screens. I want to show a couple of things here. But as Doug mentioned there, that new page that we have there is really great to break down all the new updates that we have as new things come along, and with those quick links to give you more information about all the new features for each one of those releases. I'm going to focus right now on the aspects there that Doug was mentioning here from the AI standpoint. We all know AI is really important for us right now, and we've started our journey to revamp our AI position in the platform with semantic search to make sure that you are able to find the most relevant contextual information that you need in order to feed AI. And so if you're not aware what semantic search is, semantic search allows you to find information based on the underlying meaning of the data, not specifically by keywords, as all of us are used to kind of searching using FileMaker. So it allows you to search by what the contextual meaning of the information is. And so we've expanded those functionalities in FileMaker 21.1. But before we dive into that, I know some of the people here might be a little bit new to semantic search. I'd like to show you really quickly some of the things that you could do with semantic search, first with text, with what we introduced a few months ago with FileMaker 2024. So I've got a CRM solution here going on with, I don't know, 900 records. And we've got here meetings that we're keeping track of all the meetings that we've had. And we've got some details for all the meetings that we have in there. So let's say that we wanted to search and we wanted to find meetings in which we've talked about, say, personnel training. Now, traditionally, what we would have to do normally is we would have to do several searches, right? A search for personnel, employee, and things like that, and then search for training and I don't know, other terms, right? Other synonyms for those to be able to find all the meetings, right, in which we talked about that particular topic. And it becomes very, very difficult to do and sometimes even impossible. But what I've done here is that I've set up a little field over here that allows me to use semantic search to look through all the information here in details. So if, say, for example, I pasted in here, let's say search for personal training and hit on return, right? It's going to find, in this case, found records that I've set it up, and it's found several records here that talk about the topic of personal training, right? And you'll notice that some of these use different words to describe that concept. And this is what semantic search allows us to do: find things that are really contextual, right? They're really about the meaning, not necessarily the keywords. I'll do another one here real quick. I'll do one here. Let's say we're looking for boosting customer interaction. And so again, it finds other records, finds records here that talk about that particular topic, not necessarily in those exact same words. As a matter of fact, I know that one of these is actually in a different language. And here's one of those big differences between semantic search and lexical search or keyword search is since it's searching for the underlying meaning, as long as the underlying model that's powering this is multilingual, it will go beyond just English and search through other languages. In this case, this is text here in Japanese, but I know it does talk about boosting customer interaction. I actually was playing around with a local model to try to do translation, so I don't know if this might work. But semantic search, again, allows you to search for what the contextual meaning of that information is, not necessarily those individual words. So in here, absolutely talks about enhancing customer engagement, right? Which is the same thing. So you can imagine a lot of really great use cases where you can use semantic search to power your solutions. Another way you can use it is for searching through documents. This is a very common use case where you've got maybe a repository of documents. In this case, I've got a bunch of documents over here. All right, there's only 8, but they are about a lot of different things. And let's say I want to find I want to find information, or maybe I want to answer a question. Maybe what I want to figure out is what are the new features in FileMaker 21.1.1. And one or maybe some of these documents has information about that. And so what I want to do is I want to search through all of these documents, regardless of how they're written, regardless of which words they're using, to be able to find that and figure out where I can find the answer for this particular question. And so using semantic search, I can search through all of these documents. It found several segments of these documents. Some of these documents are fairly big. And inside here, I can absolutely see that there's information about what are the new features in FileMaker 21.1. It found this in the document called, right, appropriately, Claris FileMaker Pro Release Notes, and it found several other documents, segments of that document that talk about the new features here of FileMaker 21.1. Now, if I want to answer this question, like if somebody asked me what are the new features, I would have to go through, right, as human, I would have to go through each one of these. I would have to condense that information, process that information, and provide a cohesive answer for that. Now, one of the reasons why semantic search is so important in AI is because it allows us to feed that information to other models. So let's say, for example, we take this exact same scenario where we found the information, right, of what are the new features in FileMaker 21.1.1 that we want to produce a cohesive answer based on that information. This is where large language models are really good at really processing information, unstructured data, and being able to produce a cohesive answer for things like that. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to submit this question, and it's going to leverage semantic search. It's going to find the exact same pieces of document, right, that we saw earlier, but then it's going to feed it to a large language model that then produces a really nice answer for me. So this is people ask me, like, why semantic search is so important, and this is really why. It allows us to find the relevant information that we're going to need when we're leveraging things like large language models. It feeds into that. So you can imagine there's so many powerful use cases to help us unlock the insights from information that we have locked in our applications. So that's semantic search, like kind of really quickly, especially with text. I'm super excited because in this new release of 21.1, we've expanded semantic search beyond text to now support images.
So
and
before you do that,
yeah.
Ronnie, can you go back to your last example? There's a question.
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. Let me open up here
yeah. So question on your chat with documents. These right now, these are text records stored in your app or PDFs?
These are text documents. I have one of them as PDF. I extracted the text out of that PDF, but these are all text.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So as of right now, you have to extract, just to be clear, you have to extract text into your FileMaker app from a PDF to be able to use the semantic search.
Yes, you do.
All right. I see no other questions.
No other
So
questions? All right. Yeah, I'm sorry. I accidentally closed the chat window. I'll open it up here to make sure I keep track of what's. All right. So again, this is text-based, and we've done several. We've had community live specifically on semantic search for text. So I highly recommend you go back and look at some of the information that we've posted on there before. But again, I'm really excited about this new enhancement in expanding semantic search to images. And I've got a quick demo over here that kind of shows some of the things you can do now with this new capability. So I've got this little, little marketing solution, if you will, right? Let's pretend that we are that we keep track of all the assets that we use in our little marketing campaigns. So we've got all of these images over here. And let's say I want to find images for a new campaign, I don't know, for snowboarding or something like that. So we'll type in here, I don't know, playing in the snow, and I'll hit here return. And it finds all these things, all these images that have or related to snow or things like it. And it's really cool because I did not have to type. There's no description on any of these images. I didn't have to label any of these. It doesn't matter in what language I write this description. It'll go through that and understand what the underlying concept of the image is and be able to search through those and find the appropriate images. And the really, really amazing thing is that all of this right now is happening local on my machine. I'm actually running this model locally on my laptop, running that. You saw this live. That's literally the speed that it runs on this machine with these amounts of records, which is really, really cool. You can search not just by what's in there, but you can also search by the characteristics. So let's say, for example, I want to find all black and white images, right? I can do that very, very quickly and find here black and white images. Now, just like the semantic search for text, I can search through natural language, which is what I did here. Just type in whatever phrase I want, and I'll try to do the best I can to interpret that. But I can also find other images based off of the vector data. So, and what I mean by that is once I've analyzed one of these images, I can find other images like it. So if I've actually set up a button over here that does exactly that, it takes the vector information, the embedding for the particular record that I'm on, and it'll find other ones that are similar, right, to this to that one. So if I click over here, let's say maybe we wanted to create, a campaign on surfing or something like that, click on this button, and sure enough, it finds other images about surfing. And again, I didn't provide any description on these images. These images were literally just imported in here. There's no tagging, no writing of descriptions or anything like that. This just works completely off the bat, which is truly amazing. I'll stop here because see there's a couple of Michael's asked, "Is this work on video?" No, right now it works on only on images.
But just a few things, having worked with video. I mean, one thing you could do, it won't solve the visual problem, but if you have transcripts of those videos, you could you could pull transcripts as an idea.
You could pull stills as well out of the video if that works for you there as well.
Yeah. I see another question. Can you share your document chat file?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, Rosemary, hold me true to that. Let's make sure that we get that in the next couple of days.
Okay. So what I'll just tell everyone what I will do is I will get that file from Ronnie. I will get it hosted on our download site, and then we'll link it from the community thread for this community live episode. So that's where you'll be able to get the link to it. And that link is always in the follow-up email that you'll receive next week. Question generally about what impact does vector embeddings have on database size and indexing?
So there's two questions there, so I'll split it up. On the size, it's important to note that the embeddings that are created for the data that you're trying to perform semantic search on, we support both text embeddings and a binary format that gets stored into container field. The text version of that is larger. It takes a lot more space. So, think about that, and also the performance is not as good as the binary format in the container one. Beyond that, just again, it's a file, and so you'll have to accommodate for storing that additional data in your database. So it can, depending on how many records you have, it can get large, but planning just as any other database task as well. Indexing, not much. We don't. We highly recommend that you go for the container version, right, the binary, and you really can't index that. So there's no indexing really happening there from a standard FileMaker point of view, right, as we would normally index fields and things like that. Hope that answers the question.
Yep.
And the file that we store, so we store basically the vector embedding in a container, or you should store in the container field. And the file, if you look at it, is about between 4 to 8K with all the information inside it. So it's actually very small.
Yeah.
And because it's small, that's why we're saying it should be better to actually store it directly with the rest of the solution and not externally, because that way FileMaker is going to be a lot quicker to be able to actually search it. So it doesn't really take that much space compared to the images that would actually take a long space.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of questions on the uptake of security and how it works. So what we've built inside of FileMaker around performant semantic find searches or find, sorry, is you have the option to use a public AI or a private one. The private one is your LLM running on your own systems. It can be a MacBook if you have one, Mac Mini. It can be your own instance on AWS or Azure. It doesn't really matter where it's actually stored. And that information is actually stored in environment that you control. So similar to when you have a FileMaker server running on your server, on your machine, you can do the same with LLM. Or you could use a public API, you can use Cohere, you can use OpenAI. The way they have it in a lot of cases is your data is in your instance. They're creating inside your account, a private environment where this is your data is actually residing. So it's not basically being sent and used by everyone else. Is OpenAI or Cohere, they give you access to a model, you send your data to that model, and then that model gives you the response, but doesn't learn from your data. It doesn't do anything else. Essentially, it's just looking at your data and then putting the result in your system. It doesn't use your data anywhere else. And the confusion, I think, that got created by some providers was that ChatGPT uses your information, but ChatGPT is an OpenAI. It's a service on top of OpenAI.
Yeah.
So your data in your OpenAI account isn't being used for ChatGPT. ChatGPT has other stuff behind it to be able to actually sort of use that information. So we have to separate like what does ChatGPT does or chat sort of bots using AI versus using providers that actually just use a model to look at your data and then send you the data back, and they don't actually keep anything for themselves.
Right on.
I just want to call out something Angie mentioned in chat, and I'm going to drop one more link in chat as well. Early last month, right, the week we released FileMaker 21.1, Wim DeCourt joined Community Live, and he did a step-by-step, end-to-end walkthrough of setting up a local LLM for image search, and also walked through some of the script steps in FileMaker. So Andrew just linked to that recording, and I've just linked to the step-by-step engineering blog on the same topic. So those resources are both really good and should help you get started in a more deep dive way than we have time to do today.
I just want to bring this up here because Doug had mentioned it. So with the new configure AI account and part of the new update 21.1.1, here are the different options that you have, at least for providers, or when you want to run these models. We out of the box support OpenAI. We support now Cohere, which is new. And we also support running these models locally. Some of the examples I showed here today are running completely local here, as is this one. So I'm just choosing custom. This is my local, right? My local API. But you have all of these options here to run these models, right? So you can use one of those cloud providers, or you can run these models completely local on your own environment.
Yep. And Ronnie, just a quick question that came up. What model are you running locally for these demos?
For the semantic search,
Yep.
There are really long names. We have it in the spec, but for the text base, it's the it's the one that supports multiple languages. And then there's one model right now that we support for image embedding, which is again listed on the spec. They're freely available. They're open source models, and you can download them. We'll even download them for you.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I'll just add, I think the instructions to get those specific models are included in the engineering blog.
Yeah.
And so
I'll
you
walk you
can
through those.
find the specific detail there.
Yeah.
All right.
So I took way too much time. Doug, I want to make sure you have enough time to show some of the other really great stuff in this update. Is there any other questions here before I hand it off over to you?
So I think this is a great question that just came in. Semantic search is highly effective for static or infrequently updated databases. How do you handle dynamically making embedding updates for a database that's got frequent data changes?
So there are actually several ways. So when you're creating the embeddings, we've actually created 3 ways for you to create the embeddings for you. So one, we have a script step that will create vector embeddings for multiple records. So instead of you having to go through, create a loop, we'll actually run that loop for you. So we'll create vector embeddings for everything that you have in the current found set in your script, right? When your script is running. We have another script step that is an insert embedding that will create just one embedding, maybe the current record or something like that, and it'll create that and store it into a field. But we also have a calculation, we have a function that you can use in the calculation engine. So you've got, if you have records that are constantly updating and you don't want to run it through the entire data set and maybe want to update one record at a time because they are constantly changing, you can either use the script step, the insert embedding script step, or you can use the get embedding function, and you can use it anywhere the calculation engine is available. So
so for example, what would be the performance and impact of like just including that embedding update as part of a record creation or new record or record update process in your database?
Yeah, you got it. These both of the function and the script steps are really new in this way that they're something that we've never done before. These script steps and functions actually make an API call. So it's really interesting. Just look here, right? So you've got here the insert embedding, and you've got the other one, which is the insert embedding in found set. And then you have a calculation as well, as I mentioned before. Embedding. So you've got this function here that allows you to create the embedding there as well. All three of these methods have the kind of the weird or the newness, right? That they actually make an API call behind the scenes. So you have to take that into consideration when you're adding these in. If you're adding this in as part of your process of creating a new record, so maybe you've got a script that handles creating new records, or you're going to maybe add this function inside of the auto enter portion of it, take into consideration that this is going to make an API call, whether that's going to be a local hosted model or to the outside. Think about it's going to be a round trip doing that. So just be mindful, testing these out before you put them into production. But that's basically it, right? Just remember, it's a round trip API call.
All right. And I'm going to let you address the question from Juan because he entered it in Spanish.
Fíjense en los blogs de ingeniería, a un lado documentación para hacer uso de los GPU, que se modelos locales para que la empresa pudiera tener su servidor. Okay, so Juan is asking that, saying that as a suggestion that in the engineering blogs or somewhere else that we should document how to take advantage of GPUs like NVIDIA's and things like that. To get better performance out of these models, especially when servers that servers that are specifically set up to run these AI models. Juan, gracias por la pregunta. I'll answer in English because there's supposed to be both people here. But we actually did. So the code that we were using internally does try to take advantage of those GPUs if we find it. And so we, as a matter of fact, in the specs, if you'll read, we highly recommend that you use hardware that have these GPUs on Mac computers. We absolutely use the built-in hardware. Apple has an amazing hardware built in, and so we'll leverage those if it's there. If it's not, then we'll revert to just using the CPU, which is a lot slower, but it'll still get the job done.
All right. Well, I think I will turn it over to Doug to talk about FileMaker Server updates, and then we can come back to questions as we have time at the end.
Cool. So we're going to talk about the most boring product that we have in the FileMaker product line. And the idea, it has to be boring. The idea is once you've actually got it up and running, it just runs. You don't actually have to worry about what it's doing. And when it's set up, basically just runs. So this is basically a view of the admin console in FileMaker 21.1.40, which is the version that we released. And the way we've actually sort of building this for the last couple of versions essentially is we want to give you a nice sort of interface for you to be able to actually find everything you can do with FileMaker Server. But on top of it is we are building every new options that we have on the admin console. They can be leveraged through the admin API or through the CLI. So essentially is we're trying to actually go more for the admin API because it has more control, it has better security. But essentially is a lot of the power that you have inside of the admin console can either be found through the admin API or the CLI. One other thing that you'll probably sort of notice and actually sort of didn't pay too much attention is around on the dashboard, the information that you have around the FileMaker data API. So in the previous version of FileMaker 21.0, in that section of FileMaker, what we actually were giving you the information is the amount of gigabyte that you actually used on your contracts around FileMaker data API. So for those who weren't actually aware, part of your FileMaker server contract or character contract where you had FileMaker users or even a site license or concurrency is we were giving you 2 gig per user per month of traffic of data coming out of FileMaker through the FileMaker data API. So API queries when you grab data from FileMaker and you put it in another system. And so you've got 24 gig per user and you multiply it by the time of users that you have. One of the things that we've actually found for a lot of time was people were like, I want to leverage it, but the problem is because I've got this data limit on a yearly basis, I'm not really sure when I'm going to hit that limit. And as a developer, as a user, I don't want to be bothered by that limit because it might happen, it might never happen, but if it does, and I've got to basically increase that allowance, it means basically doing procurement for large companies or doing credit card payment. It's a lot of hassle for nothing. And one of the things that we want to get people to be able to actually leverage as soon as they can is the other tools that we have on the Claris platform, be it Claris Connect or Claris Studio. So step one basically to go is, well, if we remove basically the allowance on the data API, it's going to be a lot easier for people to start going is integrating FileMaker with Connect and Studio so that when you're exchanging data between all of those with the data API, you don't actually have to pay for anything else. So as 21.1, in your contract, the FileMaker data API has been removed and it's along your contract. So if you have a annual contract, if you have a perpetual with maintenance, you'll basically have that limit removed from your contract. What we've done technically in the background is we've actually removed the checking of the API consumption on 21.1. It hasn't been updated on previous version. So even though the limit is gone on your contract, if you're using all the versions of FileMaker where it might be block you, you'll have to get in touch with that customer support so that we can actually reset it. But ideally, we would actually want you to move to the latest version of 21.1 if you can. We know obviously that people have production environment where it's harder for them to move from one version to the next. But ideally, this is basically opening up new ways of actually working. If you're not using the data API, then that's not really going to do much. But the one thing is what we're trying to actually get people is because we have this in all of casing, moving from a PHP-based application that you could have created is going to be more secure with the data API. And on top of that, now you could also leverage the OData protocol that we support inside of FileMaker. And we'll see in the future a lot of the work that's been done on the Claris platform to get all our products together will be leveraging OData, because it's a protocol that allows you to actually have more control over what you can do inside of FileMaker solution. And on top of that, it is a more secure environment than leveraging ODBC. So we've worked on a couple of areas. Essentially, it's really based on customer feedback to make sure their life is a lot easier. So one of the small now we did was people were saying is, well, I probably now that I can have up to 256 files on a server, sometimes I need to really be able to create quickly a new subfolder inside my database environment. So instead of actually doing it through the CLI or even through your desktop, you can actually do it directly from the admin console. So if you select one of the folders, you'll now have the option to be able to create subfolders. You'll have all the privileges assigned properly to the subfolder, and then you can move a file to that folder and you open your file. So ideally, just to make life a lot easier. Backups, again, for those that actually didn't see what we launched 21, we actually wanted to make your life a lot easier. So we recreated basically the schedule environment inside the FileMaker admin console. So there's one area where you can pretty much create everything. So when you create schedules, you have the options to do FileMaker scripts, you can do system scripts, script sequences, verify, and then you could do backup as well. So you can create as many backups during the day as you want, and that's kind of cool. One other thing where people are going to start using even more FileMaker scripting for this environment is with FileMaker 21.1, we are now supporting perform script on server directly being run from the server through the scripting engine. So you can actually create a script in FileMaker, call it with a PSOS, and you can actually get it to run directly inside your FileMaker server through scheduling or whatever. The one thing is we want to make sure people are actually aware of the fact that if you run too many scripts on the server at the same time, it could actually have issues. But if you basically limit yourself to running less than 25 at any one time, then you should be fine. But doing everything on the server will actually make the server maybe have some issues, and it's not ideal. So basically, I've got this script here that's going to run creating image in a content file. If I run it now, it's going to run in the background. And when I go to my databases, I'll be able to see that now I've got a FM script engine running and basically doing that. And the script is about performing script directly on the server. So you can do a lot of stuff with automation in the background. A good example is when you want to leverage semantic search with your systems and you're modifying data, you don't actually have the system maybe being done when the user is doing it. You can have now a script on your schedule being run a couple of hours, grabbing the data when data is being modified, running through your model, whether it's local or a public one, and be able to actually sort of leverage that. Other areas where we've made improvements as well is around the startup settings. So we always know that sometimes people have maybe crashes within their files, or they want to basically restart the server but not get the files to be reopened. So we've actually given you a small of tools to be able to actually control how the system works. So the latest one that we have is only open last open databases, gives you a bit more control over which database is going to start up. We have information around persistent cache. For those actually not using it, it's basically a way to have a copy of your cache on memory in your system. So persistent cache on its own will actually store a copy of your cache on the local RAM of your machine. And if you enable persistent cache sync to the disk, that cache will be copied to the hard disk. So if you have a power failure or any of these issues, your cache will be stored in the hard disk. When you restore the machine, the system inside it will actually use the cache to close the FileMaker solution, and so it just makes your life a lot easier. And then we're having the database auto restart. We've been there for quite a bit now. Again, a certificate, very important for everyone to actually have them. As you could have seen, basically from our FileMaker homepage, we're now supporting Let's Encrypt. So we have all the information on the blog. One other thing that we're working for the next version is to actually have a UI interface so that it's even easier for people to be able to submit the information to a Let's Encrypt, so that the information is grabbed directly from Let's Encrypt, put inside your FileMaker server in the right place, and be able to actually then renew it on a quarterly basis. So we've had a lot of people asking for that. Work is being done to actually sort of fix for that. One other thing we worked on is around security. So it's kind of important. The stuff that we say again and again, 30 years ago, we could actually say that FileMaker was really cool because it had a port number assigned to its traffic on your system. So port 5003. Nowadays, having a port assigned to your company, to your name, means that there is something a bit strange for you. Every IT company, every IT support management want people to use port 443, which is the secure HTTP port. So we've actually done some work to be able to enable that across the whole platform. So with this version of 21.1 across all our product line, this is fully working. It's working on the Mac, it's working on Windows servers, it's working on Linux, and it's working on Pro, it's working on Go, and it's working on FileMaker Go. The only caveat for the time being that we have, that we're working on that, is once you enable basically HTTPS tunneling on the server, your client will need to be actually on using HTTPS tunneling. So you actually have to do that through FileMaker Pro, through the settings environment, where there's a button to click. But we're working to figure out where we can actually give you more control from the server to be able to actually specify different things around that. Again, the connector hasn't changed, but if you go to your FileMaker Data API, and if you go to the OData tabs, you'll see that the only thing you see now is basically whether they've been activated or not. If you want to have more information, you can get it basically through the admin API. Through the admin API, there is a post that you can do where you'll be able to actually see the transfer that's coming from your server through OData and through the data API. But on the dashboard, what you will see is how many connections you have at any one time. It's not going to show you the traffic that you have. Again, I think we had a question a while back around external authentication. So now we've actually made it easier for people to actually have their own customer auth. It's nothing new from 21.1, but we have still people wanting to actually know more about it. Basically, we've made it as easy as we can for people to be able to leverage external auth to be able to log into the system. That's the bare minimal information we need to actually get it to run. But once you actually form that, it will actually run really, really nicely. And then the logs, we haven't really done a lot of work around that. Again, there's a lot of things that we do to when we update the system. So if you want basically more information about specific areas of the product, I invite you to actually sort of look at the release notes. So I'll show you again how to actually find them. So from the FileMaker page, you can go to the What's New area. And then on the security and the SASL, you'll see from here, you'll have all the release notes and all the content regarding everything that we've actually sort of done. So there's a lot of things, some actually new updates. A lot of them are bug fixing, different things that we have. If you're looking to actually be able to get FileMaker Server, the update, you can either get it from your ESD page, so the electronic software download page that you basically have. If you haven't got it anymore, you can get in touch with our support teams. They'll be able to actually provide you the link to be able to get to that. Or if you have a Claris ID going through the Claris Customer Console, you will be able to actually sort of get it from there. The one thing I want to talk about is it's a bit more technical. Some people don't actually use it, but it's around the developer tools that we provide to the community. So most people know that we have them, but in other cases, they don't actually know how to get there. So I'll just quickly show you. From the resource download page, all the way at the bottom, you have access to the Claris developer tools. So we have 4 of them now. The old ones are the upgrade tool. Essentially, it's using XML to be able to upgrade the solutions. Data migration is to move data from one file to the other. The app SDK is to be able to create an iOS app out of the FileMaker solutions. And the new one that we've had for a couple of releases now, but it's been updated, is the Claris FileMaker developer tools. The name isn't great, but basically what we did is we took the developer utilities from FileMaker Pro and we put it inside a Linux environment so that you can actually run it directly from your terminal or your PowerShell, or even for on Unix as well. One of the things we've been adding is information around the index and the size of the indexes that actually are stored inside your solution. So the idea for that basically is if we can actually have more information around how much data is stored in a field, how much data is stored in the index of that field or the word index of that field, you'll be able to actually figure out whether you have fields that have so much information that is causing issues, or where you have fields where the index is very, very big, then it might give you an idea why sometimes the search is actually kind of bad. This is part of our longer sort of work that we're doing around helping developers have a better understanding of what's actually inside the systems and how we can actually make it easier for them to create what we call the application lifecycle management. It's creating an environment where you have a testing environment and a development environment and a production environment, and you can see when you're doing changes how it's affecting your solution and moving data from a production or a testing environment into a production environment, how this can be done. And all of this is being done through the XML export that we do at the FileMaker representation. So there's a lot of information already on our website. There's been sessions around them. We're going to talk more in the next couple of years or even sort of months, sorry, of the work that's been done around the XML. But essentially, it is a way for us to be able to give you more tools so that you can have reusable tools in code inside of FileMaker. Is when you create a part inside of FileMaker, when you create a layout, we're trying to create tools in the background that are going to make it easier for you to reuse it in other solutions without having to actually create everything from scratch. So a lot of work is being done on this, and the idea is just to make your life a lot easier as a FileMaker developer.
All right, thanks, Doug. Just one question, or actually two questions about server. First, regarding HTTPS tunneling. In FileMaker Pro, it would be helpful and practical to have a setting to use it on a by host basis. As a developer with multiple clients, it's hard to use HTTPS tunneling because some clients require it and some don't. So any insight or thoughts on that?
We are working on this. We are trying to figure out a way, because it's actually kind of talking at the Draker level, so really basically the core of the system. For the time being, we have to actually have it this way because the weather traffic comes out of it, gets pushed into a kind of mini web server and stuff like that. Currently, that's the way we have to have it. We're trying to actually figure out a way on Pro and server whether we can actually sort of control a bit better, or actually give you the tools that it can be controlled a bit better for you. So I know it's a bit of a pain, but we'll get that eventually.
All right, and there's a question about persistent cache. I don't know if you or Ronnie can answer it, but are there circumstances where you would choose not to enable persistent cache?
So the persistent cache basically is doing a complete copy of your cache. If you have a very large cache, like you basically go mental and you use 8 gig of cache, then that has to be duplicated in your memory. So if you have very large caches, and for some reason maybe you have them, doing a duplication of that automatically all the time, it's going to basically your system to be kind of hungry, and it's going to use 16 gig of RAM. So it starts getting into proportion, which is not sort of ideal. But if you need it basically to make sure that you might have systems that actually overuse quite a little bit and have tendency to crash, then having that persistent cache basically is going to prevent that. In a lot of cases, I would say is you can enable it. I would enable it if you're finding that basically your system is crashing regularly because of data problems. It's because you have data corruption inside your system. I mean, better to actually look at your data corruptions versus trying to actually work around sorry, I was reading a question at the same time and my mind went mental. Yeah, so there was a question basically on I've got a persistent cache on, but not persistent cache to disk. This is basically just for because I play around with the files. Like Ronnie, when we do testing, we break stuff, we build it again, we break stuff, and so it's just that sometimes we do sort of funny things, so it's not ideal. The persistent cache to the disk is if you live in an environment and your data has to be 100% secure, and you want to make sure that even if you have a crash, you can rebuild the system really quickly. That's where you need to actually have it on. So.
And another HTTPS tunneling on Windows, can it be used with IIS, the Windows IIS server, or does it require only Nginx?
It can, but it's not great. So this is why we actually sort of did the install with Nginx. It has issues. I would not recommend using it. But if you really, really have to, then you can give it a try. I know the team is actually vaguely looking around it, but yeah, ideally we want actually, it's better to actually use Nginx because we have more control over that than the Windows side of it.
Give me a second while I skim through. Before I do that, I just want to let everyone know I have turned on our closing poll. If you could just answer our 2 quick questions before you log out, I and the team would very much appreciate it, since your answers to these questions help guide our planning for future Community Live episodes and for product development. I'm just like scanning. So another persistent cache question. Does persistent cache help for when a client loses connection with the server on a regular basis?
It wouldn't, because the persistent cache is only for the server. It has nothing to do with the cache on the pro. So losing the connection, we'll still have the session ID, we'll store on the server. The hibernation kind of session information is stored on the server, and then we have a timeout until basically the client comes back and says, I'm back online, give me the data back. But that persistent cache is not solving that issue specifically.
Question on XML, and I don't know if either of you is equipped to answer this. This is, I think, going to application lifecycle management. When will we be able to convert an XML file to a FileMaker FMP12 file?
I like that the question is when, not if. So so points for that. I like that. I can't give you a date, but I can tell you that we are working on it. It's important.
If for those that actually don't actually understand the meaning and importance, we used to actually have starter solutions inside of FileMaker. I think it was 19, where inside of FileMaker we had XML files that would describe the information inside the file. So you had one that they were all localized, and it would actually create a FileMaker file out of XML. We took it out because we hadn't finished XML. Work is being done to actually get there. For those on the ETS, some of you have been able to actually sort of kind of play with it. The idea is around this, it's a lot easier to be able to create a FileMaker solution using XML than doing some of the stuff. So the idea is to be able to create a template, and then you can move it across different servers, and the XML will actually transform itself into a FileMaker solution really quickly.
Yeah, there's some things that you can be able to do once you serialize a FileMaker solution. So you'll be able to compare two solutions, find the difference, apply updates, automate creation of certain aspects, like maybe adding a new module or adding a new script to your files and things like that. So we understand the need. We're working on it. Hang in there, Vincent.
All right, yeah, and I don't see any other questions that kind of are within the scope of today's webinar. We have made note of the questions that are out of scope, and we'll take them offline and get answers back to you, either in community or one-to-one. I just want to again thank you all for joining us both today and for the past several months as we've begun our twice monthly live streams. And just to share results of the poll. So the first question was, how likely are you to move to Claris FileMaker 2024 after today's? And more than half said highly likely, and about a quarter said likely. So thank you. We do strongly encourage everyone to move to the latest version. And then for semantic search, starting to add that to your apps. Almost half say highly likely or likely. Plurality at 45% is not sure, and about 10% are not likely. So that's also encouraging. Thank you for sharing that you're starting to think about semantic search. And so thank you again, Ronnie and Doug, for joining today. And to everyone who's still here, have a great holiday season. And we look forward to seeing you back in about a month in January. And also watch the community and your email for upcoming episodes of Claris Community Live.